Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I'm glad you're here today. Today I have for you the story of a case that has just reached its conclusion. Just a week and a half ago, this trial came to a close. Days later, a second arrest was made with regards to the murder we will be speaking about today. So this case really is still ongoing. This is a story about toxic exes, allegations of abuse, and revenge. It is also a story about a Juilliard-trained concert pianist and a very unusual murder scene covered in rose petals. Why was this mom and animal lover murdered in her own home in a very gruesome manner? Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, there are some things about this case that do not sit right with me. We've got 4 very messed up people in this story, and also a cop whose conduct is shady at best, perhaps criminal at worst. There are even very disturbing allegations against the victim in this story, and I'm going to go on record as stating I believe them. This whole thing stinks to me, and I have a feeling that even though the first trial has come to an end, this is not the last we will hear about this case. This is the story of Christina Parcell and the rose petal murder. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Christina Parcell, 41 years old, was a dedicated veterinary technician known for her compassionate care of animals and her vibrant presence in the community. Residing in the Cannebrake subdivision of Greer, South Carolina, she shared her home with her fiancé, Bradley Post, and her young daughter from a previous relationship with a man named John Mello. Christina's life, however, was marred by a contentious custody battle over her daughter, leading to escalating tensions between she and John Mello. I do not believe Christina Parcell was a good person. I know it is unsavory to speak ill of the dead, but please hold your judgment of me until later on. Christina worked at Foothills Veterinary Hospital in Greenville, where she was known for her dedication to animal care. Colleagues describe her as someone who was always trying to make everyone feel loved, noting that the dogs loved her and she did an incredible job with them. Christina began dating John Mello in December of 2008, during which time she also became estranged from her family. She did not speak with her family from 2010 to 2014. This period coincided with the birth of her child. I couldn't find the details on what the family issues were, but she broke off all contact with them for 4 years. I think the rift probably has something to do with who Christina was as a person. John Mello is a 64-year-old producer from South Carolina. He and Christina, like I said, began dating in 2008, and from the get-go, their relationship was tumultuous. In 2012, Christina became pregnant, but the couple continued to have a troubled relationship. Their daughter was born, and the arguing was almost constant. These two did not get along, and the ire between them escalated. In 2015, John was so angry and disturbed that he filed for full custody of the couple's daughter, and he got it. So that tells you a lot right there. John Mello was awarded sole custody of the little girl on January 4th, 2016, and just after this, Christina began dating Bradley Post. I don't get it either. Just to get the elephant in the room out of the way. Christina began receiving scheduled visitation in August of that same year. In 2017, John Mello filed to have Christina's visitation revoked. There was a lot going on behind the scenes. We're going to get to that. Finally, in 2019, the couple agreed on a visitation schedule, but John Mello was incensed that Christina got any time with her daughter, and the fighting continued. What was it about? John Mello harbored a belief that his daughter was being sexually abused by Christina Parcell. Now, it will come out later on that there were very good reasons for this belief. We learn later on that Bradley Post, Christina's fiancé, is an incredibly disgusting and sick individual. He was engaged in very disturbing behavior, and there are allegations that Christina was as well. There are those that staunchly defend Christina and say she would never abuse her daughter. I will tell you that there is very solid proof that she did. Like I said, there are 4 very messed up people in this case. John Mello's conviction to get his daughter away from her mother intensified during their custody dispute, and that led him to take very drastic measures. This is Zachary David Hughes. Zachary Hughes, a Juilliard-trained concert pianist, was once celebrated for his musical talent and performances. Zachary, originally from California, demonstrated exceptional musical abilities from a young age. He had passion for the piano, and that led him to the prestigious Juilliard School in New York City, renowned for cultivating world-class musicians. At Juilliard, Zachary honed his craft, mastering complex compositions and developing a deep understanding of musical theory and performance. His dedication and skill set the stage for a promising career in classical music. After completing his studies, Zachary embarked on a career as a concert pianist. He performed in various venues, captivating audiences with his interpretations of classical masterpieces. His repertoire included works by Beethoven, Mozart, and Chopin. His performances were noted for their technical precision and emotional depth. Despite the competitive nature of the classical music scene, Zachary managed to kind of carve out a niche for himself, earning respect among peers and audiences alike. Now, during his career, Zachary Hughes developed a close friendship with John Mello, the music producer. Their shared passion for music served as the foundation of their relationship. John Mello began to speak openly with Zachary about the contentious custody battle with his ex-partner, Christina Parcell, and John confided in Zachary about his personal struggles. He expressed deep concerns about the well-being of his daughter, alleging that Christina Parcell was subjecting her to abuse. As the friendship between John Mello and Zachary Hughes grew, the 2 men came to trust each other. One day, John went to Zachary and offered him $5,000 to kill Christina. Zachary said no. Later on, John increased the amount to $10,000. Zachary told John that there was not enough money in the world to make him commit murder, and he even told John that he was personally offended that John would ask him to do such a thing. Zachary was angry, but not angry enough to stop thinking about killing Christina. Zachary began to become convinced that the couple's daughter was in very real danger, and he claims that his moral compass would not allow him to stop thinking about the child. I don't know if this guy should be using the term moral compass. As Zachary continued to mull over this dilemma, he and John Mello undertook a campaign of harassment against Christina Parcell. They mailed sexually explicit photos of Christina to her neighbors and even to local businesses. Envelopes with these photos were even mailed to businesses owned by friends of Bradley Post, Christina's fiancé. They were trying to embarrass Bradley Post and Christina. John and Zachary did everything in their power to try to ruin Christina's reputation and destroy her peace of mind. And again, I just want to put this out here. I've done this before. It is 2025. Everyone knows some people send naked photos to each other. Do not let someone blackmail you with naked photos. We do not think less of you for sending naked photos. We think less of the people that use those for revenge. It's a disgusting, slimy, and cowardly act that speaks only about them and the kind of person they are. Nobody cares if you send naked pictures to your partner. This campaign of harassment wasn't enough for John Mello or Zachary Hughes, and I just want to stop for a moment and ask, what exactly is going on between these two? This seems like a very, very strange relationship to me. The more I read about this relationship, the more it felt off to me. My husband has a lot of close friends. He is not sitting around talking about these friends' exes and how to stalk and harass them. The more I thought about this, I realized I don't know of a man who would do this no matter how close he was with another man. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of story reading. I've been doing this a long time. I also run on vibes, and there is something very odd about this relationship to me. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it would not surprise me to learn that there may have been a sexual component to this relationship. These two men were much too intertwined and invested in each other. I could be wrong about the sexual aspect, but if it wasn't sexual, it was some sort of weird, psychologically deviant connection. This was not a normal friendship. Like I said, all 4 people in this story are very, very disturbed. John Mello contacted the police in 2018 and made accusations against Christina, stating that his daughter was being abused, and this is where a very dark case gets even stranger. When John Mello contacted the police, his allegations of abuse went nowhere. The investigation did not result in any charges because, as John claims, there was no investigation. He reported to the police that he thought his daughter was being sexually abused, and he claims the cop did nothing. Documents obtained by a local news station confirm that there was a police report filed by John Mello, but nothing was done. Why? Well, according to John Mello, the investigator that took the report formed a personal relationship with Christina Parcell. Now, what does that mean? I had to go digging, and I'm going to tell you right now, this comes from Reddit. There are a lot of allegations, some coming from people that were involved, that Christina was having sex with this investigator, and many believe that she did that to get the cop to throw away the accusations. Later on, this same cop that refused to look into John's allegations ends up arresting John for harassment in 2018. It gets even weirder. This same cop was later at the murder scene that we will be discussing in a moment. So in an already very twisted and convoluted story, we've now got allegations that a cop was having an inappropriate relationship with a woman who had very serious allegations leveled against her, and that he may have used his position to get her out of trouble. Zachary had turned John Mello's money down to murder Christina, but the deeper he got involved in this, he decided he was going to kill Christina for free in order to save her daughter from her. Zachary later stated, quote, "I had come to the point where, rationally, I knew that the only way the daughter was going to be saved from what she was enduring was for me to take this route." Rationally, Zachary? Yeah, moral compass is not a word you should be using, and rational is not a word you should be using. Rational is not someone that believes murder is the only way to deal with a situation like this one. But this is just one example of how disturbed all of the people in today's story were. Zachary Hughes drives his truck to a road adjacent to the Cannebrake neighborhood in Greenville, South Carolina, where Christina Parcell lived. He parked his truck and took his bicycle out of the back of the truck. Zachary got on his bicycle and began the short ride to Christina Parcell's house. He was carrying a knife. Zachary was also carrying a gift-wrapped box containing rose petals, and nestled in that box of roses and rose petals was a gun. Zachary arrived at Christina's house and knocked on the door. Then he began to panic. Zachary began to feel as though he could not go through with his plan. He would later say that he wanted to be anywhere else in the world but where he was at that day. But his conscience was forcing him to do whatever it took to save this little girl from her own mother. So Zachary begins to look around the neighborhood, and he realized that the gun was going to be too loud. Someone would hear it. Now, why he didn't think of that before, I don't know. Zachary said his heart was pounding as he got off his bicycle and walked to the front door of Christina's house. He knocked, and Christina opened the door. He had brought the gift wrap box as a ruse. He wanted Christina to think he had a gift for her. When Christina opened the door, Zachary pushed his way inside and pulled out the knife he had brought with him, and he stabbed Christina. He then pushed her backwards towards the couch in the front room, and soon he was on top of her. Christina was fighting back, but Zachary was stronger than she was. On top of that, Christina was already stabbed. Zachary was relentless. He stabbed Christina over and over until she stopped moving. Zachary then grabbed Christina by the ankles and dragged her body further into the living room. He stood looking at what he had done. Zachary then opened the gift wrap box and began pulling rose petals from it. He sprinkled those rose petals all around Christina's body and walked away as they began to soak in the blood. He left the house, got on his bike, and rode away, leaving Christina dead in her house. Bradley Post then tried to call his fiancée at home, and he got no answer. He knew Christina had a job interview earlier in the day, and he was surprised that she didn't pick up. He got worried and decided to drive to the house. Now, in Brad's statement, he said he knocked on the front door, I thought he lived there, so I'm confused there. He went around the back of the house and found the back door unlocked, so Bradley let himself in. And there, he saw the rose petals scattered around on the floor. He got closer, and then he saw Christina lying on her back. He saw the blood and shouted Christina's name. She did not respond, and so Bradley called 911. Authorities arrived and discovered Christina Parcell's lifeless body in her home. She had been viciously stabbed approximately 35 times, a testament to the ferocity of the attack. The police were confused at the crime scene, which bore the chilling and unusual hallmark: rose petals meticulously scattered around the body. This macabre arrangement led media outlets to dub the incident the rose petal murder. The deliberate placement of the rose petals suggested a deeply personal motive, adding a layer of mystery to the heinous act. Immediately, investigators began to question everyone in Christina's life. They quickly learned of the contentious custody battle between Christina and John Mello. John Mello had gotten himself into legal trouble a year or so earlier for taking their daughter to Italy. He claimed he had the right to do so because he had custody, but the courts disagreed. Usually, if there are two parents involved, even if you have custody, you cannot take the child out of the country without a written and notarized form from the other parent. Police began to focus on John Mello, and that is how they learned of the very close relationship between him and Zachary Hughes. Cops began to dig through the legal documents surrounding the custody battle, and there was plenty of those for them to read. This was an ugly battle over an innocent little girl who had now lost her mother. The police had more than documents, though. They had DNA. Under Christina Parcell's fingernails, they found DNA that matched that of Zachary Hughes. Not only that, a ring camera across the street from Christina's house captured Zachary dressed in a black hoodie and wearing a backpack. You can see him here in those images. He was also seen leaving the house on that same camera. The police got a hold of Zachary's phone, and they found over 1,700 WhatsApp messages between Zachary and John Mello. Some of those messages were intentionally scrambled. Now, central to this case were allegations of child abuse. Zachary claimed that his actions were driven by a belief that Christina Parcell was sexually abusing her daughter. So Zachary is arrested and he goes on trial. During his trial, just recently, Zachary testified that John Mello had expressed deep concern over his daughter's well-being, leading Zachary to become, quote, absolutely convinced of the alleged abuse. From the stand, Zach said, "I didn't feel anger. I felt pity because I realized that this was just the only way to save a child." Now, I'm going to strongly disagree there. There were other things to do besides murder someone. And it's important to note that Zachary Hughes and Christina Parcell had never met prior to the murder. His beliefs were influenced only by John Mello's assertions. The assertions. I'm going to stop, and this is where I'm going to talk about Christina and Bradley's behavior. This is the first time in 5 years that I am going to speak of the victim of a murder in this way. I found a lawsuit against Bradley and the estate of Christina filed by Eden Rogers, who is the guardian ad litem for a minor child known only as Jane Doe. Jane Doe was a friend of Christina and John's daughter. And when this murder was investigated and the police went through everyone's phones, child was found on Bradley Post's phone. This is a sick motherfucker, and I truly hope he's going to get what's coming to him. But among those images were daughters taken of Christina's daughter and this friend known as Jane Doe. They were in various states of undress, and they were in provocative poses. Christina Parcell is in some of those images. So there is no doubt that Christina was a part of this. John Mello's concerns were founded. I also have to wonder how John Mello knew that Christina was into this. It's not an accusation. It's just me thinking out loud. It is beyond disturbing. And when I was researching this story late at night in my office, I'm not going to lie, some very dark thoughts went through my head with regards to Christina Parcell. I always say, no one deserves to be murdered. I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, Bradley Post was sentenced last month for the possession of these images on his phone. This piece of shit had over 7,000 images on his phone and over 1,000 videos. All I can hope for Bradley Post is that he gets prison justice. Hell, that's too good for him. On January 29th, 2025, just a month ago, Bradley Post got 10 years, and I hope every day is a living hell for this disgusting piece of human trash. But it was during this process when the police were going through everyone's phones, John's phone, Zachary's phone, Bradley's phone, Christina's phone, they found these images. The messages between Zachary and John led them to check Zachary's DNA, and then they found the match under the fingernails. So after Zachary was arrested, he gave a few interviews to the police. Zachary goes to jail, and he has been sitting there ever since he was arrested on November 3rd, 2021, waiting for his trial, which began a couple of weeks ago. Zachary's defense stated that their client felt trapped and that he had no choice but to murder Christina Parcell in order to save her child. Now, I agree that this child needed saving, but not like this. The defense sought to present the abuse allegations as a justification for Zachary's actions. However, Circuit Court Judge Patrick Fant III prohibited any discussion of the alleged abuse during the trial, citing a lack of concrete evidence and emphasizing that the child was not in immediate danger at the time of the murder. Now, immediate danger in the law means like the child was not, no one was holding a gun to her head. This child was definitely in danger, but not the kind of danger that justifies murder. The judicial decision to leave out the allegations of abuse significantly shaped the trajectory of the trial, but it's the judge's job to only go on the legal facts. Had someone had a gun to the child's head or something like that, Zachary might have been justified in his actions, but just the allegations of abuse that hadn't even been uncovered at that time, that's not justifiable for murder. The trial culminated in the moment everyone had been waiting for. Zachary Hughes took the stand and testified. When he did, he sealed not only his own fate, but that of John Mello as well.
Zachary Hughes' testimony on the stand led investigators to charge and arrest the victim's ex, John Mello, in connection to her murder.
Early October.
On the stand, Hughes explained Mello allegedly approached him and asked if he would consider accepting money in exchange for killing Christina Parcell.
I was shocked and insulted.
Hughes says he told Mello he would only kill Parcell if he believed the daughter Mello and Parcell shared was in, quote, grave danger.
I told him, John, there's no amount of money that would ever tempt me to do something like this. And I told him I was insulted that he even thought that would be something I would consider.
He says he wrestled with the idea of killing Parcell for months. That was until he came to the conclusion killing was the only way to save the couple's daughter from alleged sexual abuse. But the topic of the potential abuse had previously been ruled inadmissible by the judge.
I knew that I had a duty to do this to save a child.
Hughes says he planned the murder, quote, very carefully. He says he showed up to Parcell's home on Canebrake Road with roses and a box. Inside was the .22 revolver he planned to use to kill her.
I walked up to the door and I rang the doorbell.
During the murder, he tells us his body was fighting against him.
I was shaking and freaking out at this point because there was nowhere I wanted to be less than at that house on that morning.
He says he couldn't use the gun. He thought it would be too loud.
I was going to have to somehow force myself to do this at any cost.
He says that's when he pulled out the knife he was carrying.
He realized I was hesitating and it became a struggle.
Hughes stabbed Parcell 35 times.
I just remember that when it finished, we were on the ground and I stopped striking her when she stopped struggling.
He told the jury he attempted to remove any DNA from underneath Parcell's nails during the struggle, but knew he had very little time.
Before I left, when I realized that I had probably left my DNA there, despite my effort not to, I prayed again and just said that I believe that what I've done is the right thing, and I believe that I did it for the right reason.
Due to Hughes' testimony, investigators arrested John Mello and charged him with being an accessory before the fact and solicitation to commit a felony. Since Hughes was instructed not to mention the sexual abuse and continued to do so, the judge held him in contempt of court and sentenced him to 6 months jail time. In Greenville, Julia Keener, 7 News.
Zachary Hughes' courtroom confession had immediate repercussions for John Mello, as you heard in that clip. On February 19th, 2025, following Zachary's testimony, Greenville County Sheriff's deputies arrested John Mello at his residence. He was charged with accessory before the fact to a felony and solicitation to commit a felony. These charges underscored the alleged conspiratorial relationship between John Mello and Zachary Hughes, painting a grim picture of a plot rooted in vengeance and misguided loyalty. John Mello was denied bond during a hearing on February 19th, 2025, and then the judge referred the case to circuit court for a subsequent bond hearing to occur within 30 days. Christina Parcell's sister, Tina, addressed the court, expressing the family's prolonged anguish and directly confronting John Mello. Tina held her sister's ashes and stated, quote, "I brought Christina because she deserves to be here. We've waited 1,224 days for this." John Mello and Zachary Hughes had previously been charged for the campaign of harassment against Christina, the distribution of explicit photographs of her, which the authorities called utterly callous. The trial of Zachary Hughes drew significant media attention due to the sensational nature of the crime and the profiles of those involved. Prosecutors portrayed Zachary as a man who allowed himself to be consumed with his friend's vendetta, leading him to commit a premeditated and brutal murder. The defense, on the other hand, argued that Zachary was motivated by a genuine, albeit misguided, desire to protect a child that he believed was in imminent danger. Despite the defense's arguments, on February 20th, 2025, the jury found Zachary Hughes guilty of murder after deliberating for about 3 hours. Zachary was subsequently sentenced to life in prison. In addition to the murder charge, Zachary was found guilty of second-degree harassment, second-degree conspiracy to commit harassment, possession of a weapon during a violent crime, and burglary. He was acquitted of first-degree harassment and first-degree conspiracy to commit harassment. The ramifications of the case extended far beyond Zachary's conviction. John Mello's arrest introduced a new chapter in the legal saga with potential charges related to his alleged solicitation for Christina's murder. The murder of Christina Parcell serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences that can arise from personal vendettas, unfounded allegations, and misguided attempts at justice. The involvement of people like Zachary and John, whose actions were driven by a mix of loyalty and maybe something else. Whatever it was, murder is never the answer. Zachary Hughes has thrown his life away. I am relieved that this little girl is in the care of someone besides her mother and her father. I've never said anything like this before about a victim, but I also have not told you, because of the rules here, what was found in the images. Whatever you're thinking, it's worse. And Christina is in some of those images. She was a part of this. And while I do not agree with murder, I am glad her daughter is away from her. As for Zachary Hughes, who knows why he chose to throw his life away. John Mello could have done more without resorting to murder. But as for Bradley Post, it wouldn't surprise me if I'm later reporting to you that he got jailhouse justice. Trust me when I say this was some sick shit. And as for Christina Parcell, wherever she is, I'm glad your little girl is safe. Well, that was a first for me. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Would you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me? It helps a lot. I want to give a special thank you to my patrons. Your support means the world to me. Would you check out my podcast, Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee? It's on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. I post brand new episodes every Monday and Wednesday. You know, we've still got our fundraiser going. If you watch this short video on my channel, it will tell you all the ways you can donate a few bucks to help us donate to police departments. We are trying to help solve some cold crimes. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.